Hey guys, welcome back. DeFi, degens, Drip, and Farm for Poverty. I'm your host, Drip Coach, dropping knowledge bombs on all Forex Shark related projects. And in today's video, going to be getting into a strategy. So a couple of you guys have mentioned in the comments, you want to know what my strategy will be when the farms open up. More specifically, what I guess people should do with various amounts of capital. I've seen some of my other drip colleagues do videos on this. I'm going to approach it in a little bit different way because for me, it's really not just about the amount of capital you have, but it's actually your experience in DeFi, and more specifically, of course, your experience with Forex Shark related projects. But really, the exposure to DeFi and how DeFi operates is going to dictate how you play this. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is cover even some of the parts that are paused. So in my strategy, I'm even covering the dog pound. I did also mention the farms and pools, but I didn't go into these because it's going to be based off of like what dry powder you have sitting available somewhere. So I'll be covering a strategy that involves the drip faucet, the reservoir, the pig pen, piggy bank, dog pound, and drip garden as the areas to get in, and then looking at various amounts of capital, 500, 1000, 2500, and 5000, because I think that should cover just about everybody. And if you're somewhere in between or above or whatever, then just kind of extrapolate it out. And this goes without saying, this is not financial advice, and of course there are probably hundreds of thousands of different ways to play this. This is just my take, what I would do. If someone were asking me how to get started, I would ask them these questions, and I approach it as I do in my fitness career. So give you a little understanding of why I came up with this. People ask me, what should I do for XYZ, or how can I lose weight or whatever, and I ask them first, like, what is their goal, and then I ask them what do they have access to. So if their goal is to let's say lose weight, because that's common, but they don't want to go, they don't have access to a gym, they don't have access to any equipment, they only want to train in their house, they have very limited space, they have bad knees, like, then my strategy is going to be very different for what I give them. So I'm looking at this the exact same way, because based on your exposure to DeFi and crypto, and your risk tolerance, then it's going to be more complicated to play different parts of the system. So what I went ahead and did is basically broke this down with no experience, meaning the only experience you have is just this video and or maybe you just heard the word crypto the other day and now you're doing some research. Then 3 to 6 months, and for this criteria I'm saying that in these 3 to 6 months you've been in crypto with DeFi, you've maybe dabbled in an ROI DApp or got wrecked with some shit coins or something like that. You've at least got your feet wet. And then 1 year or more, because 1 year or more in crypto is quite a bit of exposure. There's OGs, of course, that are further along than that, but in 1 year, if you've been in crypto, specifically in DeFi, I'm not gonna say crypto because there's people who just maybe held Bitcoin for 1 year and have no exposure. But if you've been in DeFi for 1 year or longer, then you definitely know about yield farming and LPs and all this other stuff. So we have that, and then we'll have the capital, which I have here, kind of grayed out so you don't get confused. Then this is faucet, reservoir, garden, pig pen, piggy bank, dog pound, and these were farms and pools. And like I said, I don't know why I put that in there because I didn't actually cover that in this strategy. So getting right into it, I'm not going to go over in depth with the system too much, but basically for the new beginner, person actually with a little bit of capital, so it doesn't change at all. So if you have less than $500, basically regardless of your experience, I'm saying just put it all into the faucet. So it doesn't matter where you're at, how long you've been in. If you only have less than $500, get into the faucet. And if you're not familiar with the faucet, that's this here, basically pays you 1% per day compound interest. So that's why it's the easiest way to get your feet wet, get started. Even if you are experienced but you don't have any capital, this is the quickest way to grow your capital, in my opinion. There are some other plays we'll talk about, but if you're only sitting with a little bit of money, then it's best to put it all in one spot, then diversify. I've covered that on my channel. Don't want to get the diversification, and you don't want to get into pitting your bag against itself, basically. So all in the faucet, real simple. All right, and this one, we're getting into $1,000. You have a little more to play with, so to speak. So, I didn't want to do that. All right. So with $1,000, I'm saying basically an 80-20. So faucet and reservoir. I'm sorry, faucet and garden. And that's if you have no experience. The reason why I went ahead with the garden is because that gets you some exposure into building LPs. And luckily over here with our drip liberation, we make it really simple to get started, where you can just basically take any stable coin and put it into the contract, and then it's going to spit you out the LP itself without having to do any other work. But at least it gives you exposure to understanding how LPs work, and then you can stake it. And since it's still basically playing with drip, it's not as complicated. So even if you're a newbie, then you can still get started with this on the garden. So 20% in the garden, 80% in the faucet. Real simple.
Just a quick message, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss another video. This helps bring brand awareness to the channel, as well as all Forex Shark related projects. Thank you.
Right, and if you have a little more experience, this is where we get into the reservoir. So I went with 75%, 5%, 10%, 10%. So the only thing that changes here is we're going less in the reservoir, because less in the faucet, because you have a little more experience, and then getting you into the other parts of the ecosystem, specifically into dogs now, because Forex mentioned, this is again off of Forex's recommendations from his last AMA. He said we're getting the dogs as soon as possible, and that's because of the way that dogs are playing into this farm. So it's not like any other farm, and if you have 3 to 6 months of experience, then you should be a little more familiar with farms. But this token is definitely positioned to appreciate in value and have very little sell pressure, and then various amounts of sell pressure as different people accumulate at different rates and decide at what tax rate they want to sell. So having your dogs in the dog pound and reducing your tax will be able to give you this BNB that's being paid out, and then you can stake it in the auto compounding pool and start decreasing that tax tax break basically. And then you also be able to start selling some of those dogs if you want. So that gives you a chance to get a little appreciation off of the dog's token and benefit by reducing your tax. So 10% into dogs at that stage. And then if you have more experience, then I'm going with 60%, 25%, 5%, and 10% basically. So still the same allocation. We haven't gone in any other parts of the farm, just a lower percentage. Drip is still king, but I'm just giving you guys my take on why I would go a little lower. It's because right now, and this is specifically really with now and the next month or two is what this strategy is really all about. Once the marketing goes back to drip, I would say maybe this would change up, but for now, these strategies I'm giving you guys is good enough for the launch of the animal farm October 18th, and maybe all the way up until the first announcements about the drip UI or something like that, because I think you still have a great opportunity. But once drip starts getting into higher prices, it'll be harder for you to build your bag in drip, even though drip is the staple. You know, drip starts costing $50 a drip. It's going to be much harder to get a big position. So that's why I'm saying you'll need positions in the farm, because at least you'll be able to start getting some of those taxes and things of that nature where you don't have to sell any drip to build a position. So that's my rationale for that. I know you can get some flack in the comments. Drip, drip, drip. You know, it's king. Yeah. Yes, I'm saying the same thing, but just bear with me on my thought process long term. All right, next up. $2,500 in available capital. So again, no experience. We're going with 500 in the garden, 10% in the reservoir, and 70% in the faucet. So 70, did I do that right? Yeah, 70, 10, and 20. Yep, yeah. So just basically giving you a little more exposure to about the same amount of exposure to the garden as we had previously, but now it's important, even as a beginner, because you have more capital, to start building your reservoir position. If you're not familiar with the reservoir, it basically allows you to help solidify the price floor of drip. So you can put BNB in here, and then it takes a portion of that BNB and pairs it in the background and locks up that BNB with drip. So that means there's always a floor price of drip, no matter what, no matter how much gets minted or whatever the case may be. So this is supporting not only your bag, but also everyone else that's in drip, and you're paid out in BNB. So if you ever need little gas fees, you'll have that. So I think it's important, if you have more capital, to start looking into that. We move over to 3 to 6 months of experience. We're looking at 70%, 5%, 10%, and 15%. So just increasing the dogs slightly, because again, I already explained that, and this is good for a person with some exposure in here. And then the garden is about the same. And then we move to 1 year or more. And I think it's about the same for 1 year with the capital. We got 10%, 10%, 5%, and 60%. I had a typo in there, so I had to fix that. So 70% here, 5%, 10%, and 15%. So basically the exact same play for 1 year or more. Didn't want to change that up. But once we get into these other amounts, it does change a little bit based off of what you have available to utilize in the ecosystem. All right, so now we got $5,000 as capital, and we're going with 70%, 10%, and 20% in the garden. So again, with the newbie, no experience, pretty much these are your plays. I don't really go any further than that because they're easy to understand. It's basically all the drip ecosystem, and that's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in the short term, with the easiest level to entry, basically, without having to try to really figure out the ecosystem and getting confused with where to put your money. This all almost stays on one page. The garden is obviously on a different page, but still easy to understand. Then we get into the 3 to 6 month people worth of experience. We got 60% going into the faucet, 10% in the reservoir, 10% in the garden, and 20% in the dog pound. So 20, 30, 40, yep, gives us our 100%, or yeah, 100%. Then we move into 1 year or more, and this is where the pig pen comes in for this amount of capital, because you got $5,000 and you're now more experienced. So we're putting a little bit into the pig pen, or piggy bank, sorry, to try to get leverage on the pig pen, because right now, as it stands, and probably initially, I'm not sure how much the pig pen payouts will be per pig, so it's better to get that price appreciation with the truffles and the pigs and be able to sell those pigs if you want to, and not, maybe you're not in a position to be living off the pig pen dividends because you don't have enough yet. So remember, when you're earning pigs here, you can split them apart, and then you can actually sell them, and if pigs are mooning because the farm launched, then you have exposure to them. Whereas once they're in the pig pen and locked, you only get 2% per day. So that's why I picked this strategy based off this amount that you have. And let me make sure that's right. It's 1,000, that's 2,000. Yeah, so that is correct. So once you have $5,000 in capital and your experience, that's when I think the piggy bank and pig pen specifically come into play. And last but not least, the $10,000 available is basically 70% in the faucet, and still 20 here and 10 here. So nothing changed for the no experience, the new people to crypto. We get into 50% for the faucet in the 3 to 6 month range, 10% into the reservoir, 15% in the garden, and 25% in the dogs. And again, I already explained the dogs. That's why it's here with 3 to 6 months experience, because you're going to get that access and get the ability to get your dog tax score, wallet tax score, down dramatically, and be able to sell some of those dogs for price appreciation, or just collect the dividends, or again sell them and even buy pigs. So that's why that's there. Then this is the least amount that I have in the faucet, with only 40%. But now we actually get into the pig pen, because you have a lot more capital that you can stake. So you're actually putting in 20% into the pig pen, trying to get those dividends. And then we have the garden still at 10%, and the piggy bank at 10%. And again, the dog pound, I think, is a sleeper play that people are not talking about because they don't really understand the taxes and how that Forex made this an extremely bullish ecosystem. So again, he mentioned, like, I think a 50% allocation towards dogs when the farm launched is what he would actually get into to lower that score. And I think dogs are going to moon dramatically, and having just 60% tax, because you were able to get that down, will allow you to take some of that price appreciation, because there's going to be very little sell pressure on dogs, and people are going to be accumulating them. and I think they're going to appreciate quite a bit people accumulating them and purchasing them, because they're going to be trying to get their wallet score down. So getting a big dog pound position, I think, is crucial. All right, so that is the strategy. Hopefully it was short and sweet, and hopefully it provided some value to you guys and answered the question a few of you popped in the comments. I didn't go super in depth in the explanation of how these different things work. So if you're looking for that, drop me a comment. So if you're curious of how these pieces within the ecosystem work, like the reservoir and all that, I've got videos on that. But if you want more detailed overview, hit me up in the comments on that. So if this provided value, as always, you know the drill. Like and subscribe, and of course, live daily and achieve your impossible. See you guys.